Everyone, it's Battling, or Riley if you prefer, and this is my first speed paint video. So I don't really have much of a script to go off of, just because what I'm drawing isn't exactly like, there's no deeper meaning behind what I'm drawing. So I'm just gonna kind of do a really laid back, sorta rambly deal here. And we'll just see what I end up saying and such. I apologize if you end up hearing me sniffle or cough a little bit. It's really cold in my current place. I'm in a basement, so it's cold and very dry, which causes me to have a little bit of feedback. I hope everybody's staying warm and safe with the holidays coming up and the current situation in the world. And I guess I'll talk a little bit what I'm drawing. You can see I'm laying out a sketch here. It's going to be, if you've seen the piece, it's going to be this sort of bat that's falling apart, a bat demon. And I'm just laying out the sketch here. When I sketch digitally, I like to do it in different parts with different colors. So, you know, I'll start my base sketch with whatever color I want, and then I'll usually lay over it in a different color, and then I'll lay over that in a different color. And it really depends on how many iterations I want. You can see there I wasn't really sure with the hair. And then usually once I have the body down somewhat, I'll sketch in some clothing. You can see there, I'm sketching in the clothing. Sometimes if it's a more complicated clothing design, you'll see it's not complicated here, it's a half body. But if it's a more complicated clothing design, I'll often sketch it in a different color as well. Ooh, sorry. And sometimes I'll sketch different elements in different colors depending on what I'm doing. My program is Meydän. I'm not really sure how you say it. I've been using it for a while now, a couple of years on and off. I used to use Clip Studio Paint, but I lost my access to that. I like that too, but I guess I just know this program better. And I did use Paint Tool Sci for a brief time, but I decided I didn't like it very much. I refuse to pay for Photoshop, so I don't use that. Yeah, you can see here I'm figuring out the hand, and I actually had to break here. I cut it out of the video, obviously, but I had to break here to figure out a sort of prop for them to hold, because I wasn't sure what I wanted. It was kind of funny. There I am drawing in the ears. The ears are probably one of my favorite shapes in this piece, just because they're so big, and they were so much fun to draw. And I like drawing fur texture a lot lately, too. This piece is a little bit older. It's from a few months ago, but still this year. And you can see I'm just adding in some of the drippies and the clothing bits. And you could see in the beginning there I wasn't too sure if I wanted an undershirt or not, but I went with it. I thought it'd be cooler in the end. I'm just playing with layers and brushes here. I think I'm getting ready for line art, if I'm not incorrect. Yeah, I am. I don't remember if this is when I was using the G pen or just the normal pen. I think it's just the normal pen, so there's no texture or grit on it, which I end up switching to a grittier pen for some of my later pieces, like more recent pieces. This is older, like I said. Yeah, so for line art, I use a really big stabilizer on it, actually, about 35 or 36. I don't use a tablet, and I don't use a Cintiq or anything like that. What I actually use is I have a laptop that flips around the full 360 degrees, and I draw on that instead, and I like that a lot. And I don't need a ton of pressure sensitivity for what I do. I don't think I do anyways. So I just go with a pretty high stabilizer because my hand can be pretty shaky because of the way it has to rest on the computer. But yeah, I get my pieces done. My line art can take me a little bit longer than I really want it to, and that's just because I have to zoom in so much. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just I'm not used to working on a computer, or I'm not used to working on bigger pieces, I suppose. I use a pretty small sketchbook in real life. So my line art can take me anywhere from, depending on the piece, half an hour to an hour, sometimes 2 or more. I recently did a very big piece with a full background, And the line art for that, I think, took... I did it over a span of a few days, so it probably took around, I want to say 3 or 4 hours, maybe longer for me to do. It was interesting. I ended up editing the background line art to be the same, like a brown, like a sepia tone. You can also see, although I put an undershirt on the crop top, I didn't want to go all the way on the arms because I had already drawn the fur there, and I wanted the fur to show through because I thought that'd be fun. So it's kind of a short sleeve deal, which is kind of funny, I think. I wouldn't personally wear that. I would go for something with more sleeve, but, you know. There's a lot of stuff I wouldn't personally wear that I draw my characters in. One of the most fun parts of this drawing was probably the drips. They were just really fun because they're shaped to do line art for, and interesting the color. Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, I don't really have a script for this video. I'll probably have a script for some of my other videos down the line when I have more to say on the piece, or if I have a topic in mind, but I can't really think of anything that was thematically appropriate to this, and I don't have a ton to say on the piece, so I'm just kind of rambling and narrating. So yeah, I mean, further down the line I have plans to do different topics, like I'll talk about color theory and line art and different stories I have from commissions, and I'll probably record myself drawing some of my Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and I'll tell you guys some of those stories. Yeah, I play a lot of, or at least I did until the pandemic, played a lot of D&D. Nowadays, it's harder for us to do it virtual just because of Wi-Fi and not always having the best access to everything and not always being present enough to actually play. But when we did play in person, played about 4 to 6 hours each time, and I would Dungeon Master, and we still play, just right now we're taking a break. And you also see, probably as we go, you've probably already seen 3 of them, but as we go along, I flash the names of each song up on the screen, and they're also credited and linked in the description if you want to check any of them out. They're all from the Free Music Archive, and that place is awesome if you need music for anything, or whatever your needs are. Lots of really cool creators on there. Yeah, you can see I'm zooming really close for line art these days, and I could not tell you why. It must be something about scale and how bright my sketch layers are, which, I don't know. And what I use for a brush and stuff, and how I like to do things. So I hope it's not giving you any of you motion sickness. I had to pause here, I think, in the video. I remember making a note that I had to go do laundry or something. But it does stop for a little bit, doesn't it? There we are. Not the best editing, but I got most of the big pauses out of the way. I might have actually been looking up a reference for the hand. Hands can be tricky for me. This one came out pretty good, I feel like. There we go, there's the finger. And in my head, this can was always a Monster Energy drink, but I didn't actually put it on there. I don't know why. I think I just didn't want to. I don't personally drink energy drinks. I know a lot of people who do, but I don't know. I just don't personally drink them, and I guess I just didn't want to make the can of Monster Energy. Maybe I felt it was a little too on the nose with the Bat Demon. I'm drinking a drink obviously in the background too, so I'm sorry if you hear any of that. It's important to stay hydrated. If you haven't drank any water today, you should go drink some. There we are. I had a lot of fun making that nose a sort of like upturned bat nose, little button nose. It was a lot of fun. And the eyes were so much fun too. I love doing multiple eyes. I always have. And the teeth. This entire piece was really fun. It was very self-indulgent. I didn't really make it for any particular reason or anything. I just sat down and I was like, I want to draw a demon that's a bat. And I'm gonna do it. I kind of wish I'd kept those big pointy teeth. They were so cool. But oh well. Sorry, I had to burp. And I really enjoyed the coloring and shading in this piece too. I thought it was really fun. Although, I think, you'll see it later on, but I think I use a sort of dark red for shading. Kind of wish I'd used something else, but I like the final piece, so. And I didn't put a gore warning or anything because the drips aren't technically, like, I guess they're technically blood, but they're not blood colored or anything, and they're not colored like I would actually color blood. So, yeah. I don't know if I change the size of my brush here for some of the detailing. Usually I do. Huh. If you're wondering what brushes I use nowadays, but you can probably see them on screen. I use a lot of Meydän brushes that came with the program already, so I didn't have to download them off of the cloud, but I use a lot of cloud brushes too. So nowadays for line art I use a G pen. Coloring I usually just use the paint tool to fill in. And then I render skin and clothing and textures and stuff with whatever I find appropriate. Skin I usually render with a fluffy watercolor. Clothing, if I need something, I'll usually render with like just a watercolor. And I don't think there's much more I use other than that. I usually just use the default pen for my cell shading. I think here I was debating on colors and such. Stumped. Yeah, I thought this would just be a nice first video, something pretty chill and just kind of me rambling about whatever I feel like. There we are. I think that was a weird cut I made in editing for the coloring, but... Or perhaps, I should note that I have to watch this in a preview, so if I have it sped up a lot, I actually can't see what's happening, because it's not rendered. But I believe this is just my coloring process, and I sped it up a lot because it's just me splashing colors around and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like. Because originally I was going to go with a green and purple palette, but I thought it clashed a little too much, so I ended up going with I believe it's a sort of cyan blue palette with some purple in it. Yeah, you can see I changed the purple to more of an indigo. I've got that blue going on there. I thought that looked nicer in the end. And for the longest time, I am debating over the eyes. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do with the eyes. And my friend who, at the time of drawing this, I lived with them. And we're still in good terms and everything, I just had to move out for other reasons. But my friend who was sitting beside me as I'm working on this piece looks over eventually and they're like, hey, why don't you make the eyes spirally? And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. And you'll see it later on, it comes out really cool. Yeah, there I am. Yeah, you can see I also changed the fur and the ears and the horns to a green, because I ended up deciding I want that sort of blue tealish color for the drips and the can and the tongue and the gums. And I wanted to keep my color palette pretty limited on this, just the cool colors. I didn't want to bring in any warm colors, and I didn't want to bring in a bunch of colors. So I tried to use colors like from the shirt and from this and that to put all throughout the piece. I try a lot of time to limit my color palettes like that to make sure they look more cohesive, especially if I'm doing color design, like character designs. I'd like to record a character design session and voice it over sometime. Yeah, here you can see me use that kind of reddish brown color for shading, which I wish I'd either went more red or more purple with it, one of the two. I wouldn't know how I would change that now. As for any layer effects, I don't know if I used a multiply layer of this or hard light layer, because nowadays I usually use a hard light layer for my shading, because I like to shade with a color, and the color shows up better in a hard light layer versus a multiply layer. I found multiply desaturates your colors a lot. Maybe that's just something with my eyes, maybe it doesn't actually. I don't know. But yes, I usually nowadays use a hard light layer for any shading I do, and then either hard light or soft light for highlights, depending on what kind of highlights I'm doing. And you can see, yeah, I'm just going in and shading everything. I do cell shading. I kind of, depending on the piece, I have a few different shading techniques I use. This one's just my normal default shading, so I use one color for shading and shade everything that I need to shade. Depending on the piece, I might have up to 3 colors for shading, with light sources and everything. Like I just recently did a piece for a friend who won my giveaway, and I used 2 different colors to shade their piece, and it came out, it was just more of like a subtle lighting thing. And that big piece I was talking about earlier, I think I must have used 2 to 3 shading colors, because I shaded in the entire background with just like a basic tone, and I did more shading underneath that and more shading. Yeah, I used to do softer shading with my pieces, but I don't really do that anymore. I like to cell shade. And you can see I'm adjusting layers and going through the entire piece. Yeah, so I have a lot of layers in my pieces. I know some people who only use like a few layers, or even, heaven forbid, 1 layer in their pieces, but no, I have to use a bunch. I like it better that way. If I have layers, I'm going to take advantage of it. And now you can see I'm finally putting the texture on the drips, quote unquote blood, I guess, and I'm going to blend it out too. Yeah, you can see here's where I use what I usually use for rendering skin, a fleshy? No, a fluffy watercolor. It's not fleshy. That'd be bad. And it gives a little bit of texture, which I like a lot. And now I believe I'm putting in some highlights just to bring it all together. Make some of it look more liquidy. Yeah, so when I was making this piece, one of the things I really wanted to do was make it almost an eyesore. Which sounds bad, but I really enjoyed using such bright saturated colors, because usually I don't use such saturated colors. I like to keep stuff pretty naturalistic, especially if I'm designing a character, which is my main thing. Oh, and here you can see the spiral eyes. But yeah, usually I'm designing characters and stuff, and I like to keep it a little bit more naturalistic and not go so bright with it. But since this piece, I've been doing more and more bright things, which has been really fun. And here's the piece all finished up. I had put a gradient in there, but I don't think I recorded it. Sorry about the burp. And yeah, it's all done here. I really like the outcome, and this will sit here for a moment, so I'll bid you farewell and let you enjoy the last little bit of the music. Hope you enjoyed it.